Hello and welcome to the Michael Mamas Show. I'm your host, Michael Mamas, and we're coming to you from a beautiful sunny day at Mount Soma, home of the Sri Sameshwara Temple in the mountains of western North Carolina. Today, we're going to talk about speech. Speech is not to be underestimated. And of course, like everything, you can pick it up, the meaning of it, the significance of it on different levels. I think I'd like to start by talking about the deepest level. What is speech? Words create worlds. I like that in the blog comment. You say words create worlds. First, understand its full nature. Then evolve your speech. Ancient secrets of Sanskrit revealed. What Sanskrit have to do with that deepest level? Okay. We've talked, everything maps. And many of the mappings, maybe even all of the mappings, are just so intriguing. And there's a mapping of the human physiology, You see, everything gravitates back to oneness, even the evolution of species. That's the engine behind why Darwin's theory isn't just random, because there's a gravitational pull back to that internal intelligence structured within the absolute itself. It's inducing evolution into species until there's a species that culminates in the ability to express, to grasp, to be fully awake to the transcendental value in all of its grandeur. It's amazing if humanity just understood that, not just as, some nice little spiritual concept, but really the physics of it, the reality of it, the significance of it, it would change everything. So as we've discussed, the underlying basis of all existence is pure isness, which equals pure consciousness. That's even something to reflect upon quite a while. Isness equals consciousness. Everything that is built out of that fundamental building block of existence, of isness, which is just a field of pure consciousness. And so if we study the nature of consciousness, so much unfolds, and the insights into the nature of speech unfold. And if we realize then that the human physiology is a structure that mirrors, that maps onto the very structure of existence itself. Why? Because the human physiology is a species that has evolved to the point where it's capable of expressing the depth and breadth of the true nature of all existence. The problem, of course, with human beings now is that, like we've talked about, the fishbowl is polluted. Everything's polluted. Physiologies are polluted. So the underlying essence and the true nature of what it means to be a human being is shrouded by all the dross, all the stress and turmoil and polluted fishbowl of global consciousness that permeates the world. So let's take a look then at the human physiology in its pure state, our own potential, your own potential, and how it maps onto, how it correlates with the structure of existence itself. Consciousness is the only thing that is. Pure unboundedness, no thingness. Mapping onto fully open throat. Isn't it interesting that, you take a bite of a nice piece of pie that tastes delicious, and what do? You transcend, huh? A brief moment of transcending there. That is the sound of pure isness. Before isness, before consciousness becomes conscious of itself. Ah is the very first sound of the manifestation of existence as it correlates to the self-interacting dynamic of oneness. Now, within the absolute itself, that sequential unfoldment of consciousness becoming aware of itself, becoming two things, I and thou, consciousness becoming aware of those two things, a third thing, cascading out to infinity, a fourth, a fifth, like that. All the self-interacting dynamic of pureness, pure consciousness. But in relativity, the distinction there is that in relativity, that's why it's called relative, because it's relative. We lose the sense of our own divine self in its pure, full state. We all sense it to some degree, however we refer to it. But in its full state, we lose full awareness of its true nature, because now things become relative. It's a nature of relativity. To be in the relative, you function within the relative, and that's the nature of the relative. So the first syllable of Rig Veda, which is the sequential unfoldment of the self-interacting dynamic of pure isness, the next sound is good. Good. Good is it's like the fully closed throat. It's a full stop. Fully open, good, full stop. Good. Everything is one, good. Thingness, full stop. It's now contained within the nature of is good. It's inherent in the nature of consciousness that it becomes aware of itself as other. Good. You see? The whole sequential unfoldment of Rig Veda, of the Veda, the whole sequential unfoldment of the Veda, you could say that is a commentary on the nature of the nature of pure isness, the nature of pure consciousness. So, okay, it's all right there. It's right there. It is. That explains everything. But just in case, let's take a deeper look at it. Good. And like that, agnim, that's the first word you could say of Rig Veda. Agnim is just, again, a sequential unfoldment, all based on and further commentary on So we have agnim, and then we have agni mile purohitam, and it goes on and on like that, all through all 10 mandalas of Rig Veda. See, we're talking physics here. We're talking the nature of existence. We're talking about the nature of pure isness. Beautiful, It's interesting to note that the 9th word, I think it is, of Rig Veda, ratna. What does that mean? Ratna, generally translated as gemstone on some level. It's also, there's the crystalline nature. So what that is it's the crystalline nature of the self-interacting dynamic of pure isness that all just emerges naturally and is inherent in the very, very nature of And that structure then that gets created of Rig Veda is the foundation of sound. The first sound. Agni mile, like that. That's why, you see, it's really interesting because in the West, in the Bible, they say it kind of succinctly and in a way kind of vaguely, which is fine because I think largely that was given to people, because how many people are going to sit there and analyze that? What is it? In the beginning was the Word. Boom, right there. Agni. You see? And the Word was God, I think, in the next line there. All maps onto the structure of human physiology. Why does it structure onto the human physiology so precisely? Because the human being is a physiology that has evolved to the point where it fully expresses the nature inherent in the true nature of nature itself, of Mother Nature itself, of the Veda. That's what the Veda is. It's just nature. You know, it's really interesting. So much in the West, really everything. Where did everything come from? Where did all this knowledge really originate? You know, in the West, they like to say, oh, the cradle of Western civilization, the cradle of civilization is ancient Greece. Well, the ancient Greeks were great, okay? But even back in ancient times, the Romans, the Greeks, they were all going to India, and they brought back with them a lot of the knowledge. And then again, the English, when the English went to India in the 1800s, like that, uh, they gained a lot of knowledge because within the Veda is the nature of all existence, of all of life. Contained within the Veda is the diameter of the Earth, is how distant the various planets are. You name it, it's there. And so they gave that, all that knowledge they gave to England, to the English. The English brought it back, and then sometime later, the English introduced it to India as knowledge from the West, which is really, it's hilarious, you know, it's so ironic. And also that when they look at the source of language, they don't look at Sanskrit, they don't look at the source of, they did the same thing again. Civilization, they say, started in the birth of civilization, started in the West. No, it's not, just not true. The world is not as we have been led to believe. In so many arenas. In so many arenas. Now, language then is a very, very powerful thing. Sanskrit, where was it first cognized? Where was it first recognized? Where did it first become expressed? Through the rishis, the seers, in the Himalayas, up around Kashmir. Vedic cognition, it's called. And then from there, the knowledge spread. They talk about these Sumerians, you know, well, that was all India at one time. But the point being that those civilizations had their origin, the source of their knowledge came from Vedic cognition, really. I'm not born in India. I have no Indian heritage. I say this, I do this because I studied and I learned and I came to understand it. Other than that, I'm not vested in this whatsoever. I mean, maybe if I was an Indian and I was saying this, you'd say, oh yeah, well, the Greeks are going to say it was ancient Greece. The Indians are going to say it was India. The English are going to say it's England, blah, blah. It's not where I'm coming from. And if you study it, the more you study it, the more you analyze it, the more you work with it, the more you realize that, yeah, it came out of India. It came out of the Himalayas originally. The knowledge was cognized, okay? So we're understanding now the power of speech, the power of the word, the power of words. Much of your own individual evolution comes from the nature of your own speech. How you speak. Not only in how you speak in public, but maybe even particularly how you speak in your moments with close friends, family. See, the brain, you know, it has a pop-off valve. You know, if there's too much stress, too much whatever, too much, the pollution of the fishbowl, to continue with that analogy, if there's too much of that going on, the brain needs a pop-off valve to spew that negativity. And what is that pop-off valve for the brain? It's your mouth. It's your speech. But speech is powerful. So what you say as you speak, probably even more particularly when you feel free to allow that in the brain, out the mouth connection to just flow without any censoring, if you will, it becomes the impact you have not only on your own physiology, but on the world, and that is reflected back to you. So much of your own evolution, it comes from your speech. So we do well to choose our words carefully. And I would say, particularly when we're speaking to people in an intimate way like that, our close friends, our family members, you create your world largely through your speech. It's how it affects other people. It's how it affects the planet. It's how it affects others. Sahana Vatu, never denounce anyone. Karma is an interesting thing because it has a time lag. You can do something wonderful, and then where's the reward? You can do something terrible, and you get away with it, seemingly. It's because there's a time lag to karma. Now, why is there a time lag to karma? Why, when you sow the seed, do you get the results down the line? Well, if you think about it, if there was no time lag, instant, then there would be no relativity, there would be no manifestation. Everything would resolve itself back into the absolute immediately. So the only way we can have a world in relativity is to have a time lag to karma. But see, that creates a pretty difficult scenario, because you can go out there and do a bunch of terrible things and seemingly have a great life of prosperity and success and like that. Or you can be a wonderful person, working very hard, doing all the right things, on and on. And where's the reward? Well, it will all come to pass. Everything will sort out in the long run. Every dynamic, I've been working with this concept and I love it. I talk about wholeness value as samhita. A samhita is wholeness. It's the fullness. You could almost say that every true system, be it an automobile engine or be it whatever, has a samhita value. Generally, samhita values are referred to different aspects of the structure of Veda, different wholeness values, The samhita value culminates, collapses down, if you will. Richo Akshare, collapses down to the totality, unboundedness. So in a sense, then, every samhita value is a zero net gain. Nothing is really happening when embraced in the deepest level from the deepest level of existence. That's what the witness is. That's when God realization occurs. No judgment, no perspective, no commentary, just a silent, unbounded, eternal witness of pure consciousness on the deep level. On the surface, we go about our life because it's in relativity. Everything is relative. We have our likes, our dislikes. From the perspective of that samhita value of the transcendental level, how can you have likes and dislikes? How can you desire anything when you're already one with everything? You see? That's what freedom from desire is. Doesn't mean that you don't care if you have chocolate or vanilla ice cream. That's a misunderstanding, When your thoughts start to contradict your feelings, that's when you start to lie to yourself. You see, the deepest level of existence, when we embrace it, when we start to function from that level, it doesn't manifest as a concrete thought. Why? Because the transcendent is a field of abstraction. And so what is within the human physiology, what is that most abstract level? Very fine feeling, the finest feelings, the finest feeling level. Not the finest level we might be able to feel if we're in a silent emotional state, when we're deep and calm and reflective. The finest feeling level, that level of real intuition, you see. So when we become so dominated by thoughts, indoctrinations, belief systems, what have you, we overshadow the best of ourselves, which is that finest feeling level, that place where true insight, true intuition, true genius emerges. And it emerges in different ways for different people. Genius can be loving, genius can be analytical, depending on the nature of your physiology. Is that finest feeling level wells up through all the different levels of life, finally emerging as concrete thoughts, you see? But when the thoughts dominate, like puts a cap on the whole process. I think that's a book. Scotty, anything else before we close? I think that's the message. And that's a message that, boy, you could reflect on. I reflect on.
Well, one thing, as we as humans had kind of manifested out of, consciousness, as an individual, now we have the ability of collapsing down on different realities, right? And creating
Yeah, I can say that.
right?
Yeah, it's like the totality is too much to fathom. And so we take a little glimpse and call it reality.
Right. I was watching this podcast with a guy that used to work for the CIA, and he talks about the infiltration of different, now spies aren't like 007. It's like they're accountants, they're this and that. They're people that are influencers that are getting people to collapse down onto these different narratives or ways of thinking or whatever,
and function within them.
So yeah, they're trying to guide us. So that's one of the things I think that we should all be aware of, is like there's a different scale. Like you're enlightened, you have access to all of those realities, and you're not stuck in any one of those realities for the most part. Maybe, I'm sure you have your karma or whatever, even when you're enlightened, and you're stuck on chocolate or whatever.
So it's all well said, Scotty. I agree.
Is that so? And then on the other end, there's the guys that are stuck where they see just certain patterns, right? That this is what makes me comfortable. This is what I know. And so that's where we have to really work on, right? Is
see, and that's the frustration of the enlightened, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because you're interfacing with a world of a particular paradigm, and you see so far beyond it.
Right.
But there's such a finesse to communication then, because you can't really speak fully from the perspective of everything you know, because it's rejected, it's viewed as wrong or judgmental, or boy, there are all kinds of labels you can put on that one, can't you?
Right. But this has got to get out where people need to start, because they've got to figure it out, right? And nobody, I mean, even as an enlightened person talking to the person that you're trying to talk them down from the matrix, ultimately they're the ones that have to, okay, my hands are like tired from holding on to this. I can let go of all that and move about.
And the amazing thing is, it's so ridiculously physiological.
Yeah.
It's not just an attitude that you cling to, but that clinging is a tonal quality, the nature of the physiology. Now, I'm going to finesse what I mean by physiology. Well, we're talking about subtle physiology. We're talking about physiology of consciousness, physiology of our own awareness, physiology of, if you will, the auric field, the structure of our chakras. All that has physiology. Physiology exists from the most superficial level, which we commonly think of as physiology, blood chemistry, get your blood tests at the doctor, like that, all the way down to the deepest level of physiology, the deepest level of our being, you see.
And I'm sure it's also got to be frustrating from the standpoint of each one of us as an individual have a different makeup of all these holdings, some, physiological, some, spirit, it's whatever it is, that combination is unique unto that individual in terms
Oh,
of
what a complex web
yeah.
we weave.
Right. Yeah.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. There's so much going on in current events. For a while on these podcasts, I was commenting on them some, but I've given up on it. It's so ridiculous. It's so absurdly
Yeah.
ridiculous right now. All that cobwebs that's being woven, the web that's being woven. It's going to keep up like that. No fiscal responsibility whatsoever. No notion of truth other than what's been spoon fed, picking the narrative. Anyway, I don't want to get into it, but all I really want to say about it is just hang in there. This is a phase transition to the golden age, as the Rishi said. And in that phase transition, things become very turbulent for a while, and that's what we're going through. So do your best, and do your best to vote wisely. It is important, but realize that just things are really nutty now. It's going to keep up like that. I would think we'll start to notice improvement after a couple of years. I think, according to the rishis, actually, and the Jyotishis and like that. But it's all going to work out, not just fine, but great. Okay. All right, Scotty, anything else before we close?
No, I think
I have one. This is just for fun, and it's just my silly sense of humor or whatever. But it was actually a shoehorn. I bought a shoehorn because, hiking boots and, snug fitting, and shoehorns are great. And I mean, I think everybody should have at least one shoehorn. I have one at each door of the house, And I think shoehorns are the most underrated utensil in America. Because how many times do we have to, struggle to put on a good pair of shoes, This makes it easy. And so then I started goofing around with that. What's the most underrated condiment in America? I think it's plain yellow mustard. 0 calories. If you mix in a little barbecue sauce or something, doesn't take much. And then it's a barbecue sauce. In fact, in South Carolina, that is mustard-based barbecue sauce, 0 calorie barbecue sauce, essentially, And then I started thinking, what's the most underestimated cleaning product? Well, they got OxyClean now. All that is borax. Borax works great, and you can get it way cheaper, and it's a powder, and you can use it in different ways. So it's between borax and white vinegar, which cleans almost anything. And I don't know if anybody thinks of anything or has an improvement on my little list there. Send in a comment, or if you have another underrated anything, it'd be fun to see your comments on that. Okay, I think that's it, Scotty, unless there's anything else.
No, that's good.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. Look forward to talking with you next week. And signing off for now.